You just keep me hanging on. You just keep me hanging on.
Well, it's finally time. It's the last PS4 collection video here for Moosen Spiel, and the theme is RPG games. The PS4 has really kind of reiterated an RPG love that a lot of fans seem to have missed in the past generation. At least that's my opinion. I will be mentioning some digital download games that I have for the PS4, and I will also mention at the end of the video games that were covered in the monthly pickups video, because the PS4 is a new console and I've been pretty much getting them in real time. So I'll just mention those just for you guys at the end. I hope you guys enjoy the last PS4 collection video and look forward to the next one. This first RPG is by Square Enix, no doubt a very famous studio for RPGs, and it's called Dragon Quest Heroes. It's not your typical Dragon Quest game that you're familiar with, although the animation is very much Dragon Quest. Its gameplay is more familiar if you've played the Samurai Warriors or the Dynasty Warriors games, where the gameplay is all about having your mindless enemies in a large group where they don't really attack you too often, followed by a massive boss battle that are kind of pissed off that you've been killing its friends. The story is actually kind of dark when you get down to it. You're in the Dragon Quest world. Humans and monsters live in peace. They're basically friends, and then a giant purple smoke thing by an evil enemy makes them all turn on you. So imagine your pet at home all of a sudden gets rabies and you have to put it down. It's that kind of dark, but don't let that deter you. The gameplay is hypnotic, as is with your typical Dynasty Warriors games, where you flash combos together, and it's incredibly satisfying. And then the occasional boss battle, especially as you progress through the game, gets more and more challenging. So even though it's not very interactive at first, it does get to that point later on. Not really sure what the upgrade path is supposed to accomplish during this game. It's not really useful in any way, but then the skill tree doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out either. It's just their way of upgrading the characters. The characters are lovable for what they are, the voice acting's okay, the visuals and gameplay are very nice, but when it comes down to it, you might get bored of the combat quickly, and the story is definitely, as dark as it is, it's nothing to write home about. And that's what's really disappointing about this. But it's a very addictive game when it comes right down to it. It was very popular in Japan for a reason, and I can totally see it. So here's a series I haven't played in quite some time. It's by Bandai Namco, and it's called Tales of Zestiria. I haven't been into the Tales series in many years since Tales of Symphonia, so this was actually a pleasant surprise. I was impressed with the incredibly different open world that Tales of Zestiria has created for us, the gamer, but it was its deep customization in making your characters, the real-time battle sequences, which isn't anything new or groundbreaking, but it was the armatization feature in the game where you go full-on anime Guardian Force mode via Final Fantasy VIII is what it reminded me of, and that was very satisfying for what the game had to offer. The battle sequences were amazing. I can't speak highly enough at it. That's what's really lacked to me in the past Tales games, or what's happened since Symphonia. What I don't like is the incredibly linear dungeons, and the fact that you find yourself just going back and forth between rooms just trying to solve these mindless puzzles. The characters are very bland and not really memorable, and quite trope-ridden when it comes to anime. But it's really alright, it didn't really bother me as a fan. What really bothered me, though, were those linear dungeons, just without any challenge to them at all. And near the end game, you find yourself on foot quite a bit, going from place to place, all for about a 10-second cutscene. That's very frustrating and not satisfying at all. Even with the fast travel system in place, for some reason it just randomly cuts out or just doesn't work. Not really sure why the game chose to do this. The story is alright and fairly engaging, but nothing special or to write home about. So here we see another Capcom iteration in the Resident Evil series with Revelations 2. Now, if you've seen the channel in the past, my friend and I did play Resident Evil Revelations, and it was an okay game, sort of striving back to its old original Resident Evil phase of survival horror, yet with a still little bit of shooting action mixed in between. What I do like about what they've changed between Revelations and Revelations 2 is the fact that the co-op mode / your partner isn't completely useless and having the illusion that they're useful. What I mean by this is your partner puts rounds into the enemy and it's actually effective in this game. That was good. The other thing that's good is the story in this game. It's quite engaging, it's very intriguing, it really keeps you interested, and it's not very convoluted or science-y, if that's the right term to use, that Revelations 1 had. My problem with this is, compared to the Queen Zenobia, which is the giant ship on the first Resident Evil Revelations game, this one seems to have a more dull environment and very samey after a while. Just very bland hallways, and that's kind of disappointing, even with that extra little bit of survival horror put in. The enemies are very predictable, and the character designs really seem to lack the imagination previous Resident Evil games have shown. But what I do like is, finally, the controls work, such as the dodge motion and the turnaround option. In the previous Revelations game, the dodging was almost random, and the turning around was very limited, especially when it came to boss battles. This really is a Resident Evil game I have been waiting for a long time. This is probably going to be Konami's last hurrah in making a good game, and it's Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. And from the instant you put this game in, whether it be the nonsense crazy story that the Metal Gear series has delivered to us in the past, it is the open world that is just so massive it's overwhelming. One aspect of the gameplay I can first focus on, which I just touched upon in the Ground Zero's thoughts, is the sum of the parts of Metal Gear Solid 5, and what I mean by that is how weather and the day-night cycle really plays a part in how you play the game. This ranges from rain masking your footsteps to sandstorms not quite blocking visibility, but it is blocking radio transmissions for you to call backup, for example. It's really quite remarkable how Metal Gear Solid does this so well and so intricately that everything molds together perfectly. Basically, Metal Gear Solid 5's gameplay is superb. It has just the right amount of complexity, nothing scripted in the missions that you are given, meaning it is up to you on how you want to go about the mission, loud or quiet. No pun intended there, due to the character. There are just an enormous amount of gadgets and abilities you unlock as you play the game, and the story almost seems like it's second place as to everything else in the game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I really love what Metal Gear Solid 5 has become, and it's going to be a game we talk about years from now. It's a once-in-a-generation kind of game, and most definitely a 10 out of 10. It is a must-have for a PS4 collector. So that was it. I know it took a little bit, but the PS4 collection's done, and it doesn't seem like that many games, but for the record, my favorite so far is Dark Souls 3, which was covered in a monthly pickups video. Some other games covered are Brothers, Song of the Deep, The Witcher 3, Uncharted 4, the new Star Ocean game, Ratchet & Clank, and my only digital download game for the PS4 is Trials of the Blood Dragon. So, there's a lot of games I have for the PS4 that we can all play on Moosen Spiel, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and the next collection video series is going to be the Sega Master System. So I hope you all look forward to that as much as I do.